냠제 전부도 유미종 용문문 전부가 자다 다그러 다른 전도 실문도 스톰마도 제잘라기 숑살.
To liberate sentient beings, please generate the supreme bodhicitta before we start today's teaching.
Tene chomden de janju zawa zawa jembo shamben der kchi sorto chomden de rikyo mo kan la chuti nam jang der ta shapa tuni. Jis yeran na chomden de ji chomden de rikyo mo di sonam jerni jebrin ger tene janju zawa jembo shambe de tsup chapan de sorto. Hwarchim nyang dene kang donda chamba donda jawa nyamba kang tune jis yerangwa te gewa chitsam ger tene chomdun de ji shangchu sanwa chimbo papa shamba landar ke chepka tsar do mapamba devjang shoba yongsam nyang len dene rikji wo gam rikji wo mo gerlong ma givnyen ma Kebagan John Kirbagan, John Makan, Chuti Namjando, Shapala, Nyanjatuni, Jis Yeran, Wala Chunyamba, Sonte, Xilakandan Dikam, Kemnandikam, Ugumbanandikam, Changnandikam, Jonandikam, Jonandikam, Rongte, Jetetala, Jetetala, Chuti Cherter Tuba Cherter Zambajando, Chini, Pagam, Magam, Nieta Gamma. Yang nieta te taglayam goran girwagam jibagam jan gang wati semjin parur walakta ne te thuni jis yerang wati jis rani kyang jan lat me be te dar kyang te thuni jis yerang wati jan lat me te tele kyang te thuni jis yerang wati ter ter yang nam jang da chigne chigdo je ter ngap je thambala thu bana ma phamba chigne chigdo je pa to be jis yerang war ngap je pu mir jerwa kang yin ba te ma phamba ri kyo momdo ti jis yerang wa dan dan be sonum ji ngom brand she ba te nge sha je lag bra rap ta nyon la yela zong shi da nge chola sha to ma phamba ndir ta te khwe na ji tin ji kam chang me ba jar tong je sem chen ko pa yo pa ro chi de che ba dang gong a le che ba gam ga ne che ba gam chok le che ba zi le che ba gam zig jan no zig me ba gam de shi jan nam de shi me ba gam de shi me ban de shi yo me me da kan me tam kan ni sam kan ni ba gam kan je ba gam kan ma wa sem chen ni ba sem chen ji kam de ja yang da bar ndo ber che ra nam la mo sunum Doba Pambran Doban Gaji Kim Jongwe, Semshinji, Tsog Tetaglayan, Dober Tsimo Dang Gavi Long Shut, Shoba, Shunjik Bam Ziba Ziba Yedogongada.现在那个乌鸦有两种乌鸦，一个是红嘴乌鸦，一个是另外一个乌鸦。好像另外那个乌鸦现在都基本上看不到那个，这个乌鸦好像比较多。都不是这么的哪个玩用词就不是学有些人的甚至日来用咱们那用词跟我认的。中当塞当我当诺当没得当编制呀当我当满些当学着当地乡乡大当啷个乡大当啷不去乡大当康巴走吧当康巴样现的马棚班的都准备都不全部没得路价值参我人吧啦马棚吧的你准备都不人都全部没得的样的sem真的他们是讲的个这Jigbe Garze shipi devra surna semchen de dum gortya jang nierma konste natsud gyach lomber giete semchen de dum gortya jang che ti shebra yang never jerna dak de yang sem devjang shubek song ge chu ndorwa la rap de jisab tan do nyamne ma phamba de ne mo di semchen de da tamchat de Evjena xer be son ba chun darwa la yang ta bran zote yang ta bra pchet nem zin da jigba la zemjin de da gi jang chum nyan de tu ne der ki tang ji yi zim ji lan di de tam chi din de jigba gam na chi shir gong wa da na chi shir mo wa dam je to bran giro zaba zan ne sang tun chimbo tara de la so 랑치공 제여 토브른 예로나 조바자베 상톤 쳔보 넘버 타라게 라조반지 비럽 좀 바토브른 제네 마반바 텐도 냠도 짐비 덕보 마테 제테닐레 소는 망보 호드메 바짱메 바케 담마 데르크 집갑사라담 좀든 대장 주성화 전부 샴발란들 집갑사도 좀든데 데럭소 대장서베 데텔 Jende jimbi dobo chimbo di meti semjin tehni pala devi yoje tamchi tsarvi flat rigiteli sunum mando kena jondan de ti kondo dapchamba nyella rapta kotni ko pertar mu jan chinsarte terki chi sorne jondan de kibshan ju zangwa jimbo mapam balandir ki chipka tsado mapam ba kyonmu brasha kongda chebrasha jimbi dobo Jimdo chimbo di mekang ban jikten gi kam chang me pa yar tong chag je semchen tamjil la devi yo she tamji gi rimro she de jab chum ban nyel la rap to ko sunum ke la yang kang chi gi chi de ge te tu ba rngap chi gerwa go mti chu ji nam ran da la tsip che ba chi kam tsip che ba chi tu di ji se yeran we mti ji se yeran wa dan dan ben ko ne san she go bo no jimbi dog bu chimbu mti jimba dan dan ba dan jab chum nyel la ko ba dan dan bi sunum she we go bo kang mo chig ne chig de ge bir ngap che bo mi chu ji nam ran da la tsip che ba chi kam tsip che ba chi tu ni ji se yeran wa chi ma te ma pham ba ji se yeran dan da bi sunum ngom 제바 개와 문브런도 시비 ndana ngami jimba dan dan bedo jimba ni lap ko ba dan dambi sun 문브런도 시바티 야차리양 먼로 때 동거 차리양 동거 차리양 야 동거 차리양 시비 차리양 시와 기 차리양 시와 동거 차리양 시와 야 동거 차리양 시와 척추 야 동거 차리양 니 먼로 때 장어를 시와양 장스 베리양 여러 መን주 모조도 마반 바테 타위르 ngap주보 머티니 타나 추지 남전달에 츠츠잡박지 까마 츠츠그 지스 예랑와 나 손음도 니 께나 마반바 긍긍이 문슴도 추지 남전도 년대 투니 지스랑 스타트 문jan지고 마반바 디 손음 문브른도 시바나 치호드메 바 치정메 바 징예샤도 마반바 야 릭기 버금 릭기 오모 긍기 양 추지 남전도 년비 시르다 더게 켐네 쇼테 찌락강 스틸강도 손때 대지르네 된 장화감 득때 추지 남전도 이쯤 지금 냐네 샘진디 손 문브른도 시바디 신장 서베 나 디지스요 나 시마다 더고 ngor 모토베 얼렁거 스타 토르 렁거 스타 토브른 여로 상地向大党얼렁보 제상大党 교기 존바당 지 존바당 김축고 존바당 히 jarme kang to paran yerate kartim don di chug jogte yitzum jing digte chuji namjang da nyan tam parur don digdap chikam semchin jan la tum gom sunum gombrand shibarte gyapshin dang changbar tan dang khurlo gerwe sanki ge to paran yero mapamba ka terigi wargi umokang la magjan jigla ndirkechi kema chutsir sho tambi chupa makar bo jivshavi chuji namjang da nyon chigji me bada mate 주아르니네 카테 예쯤 지냐네 예쯤 주아디 기유자와 문버른도 시바디 좀 도비장 주선 화선 진보 남다 한지든 쪽바 토보 lumбур ман겨로 원보 노장 시럽당 담버른 겨로 새로 겨동의 양 가르와잠 남버 만겨데 데레 시 메퍼 만겨와당 칸낫 메퍼 겨와당 소문버 만겨와당 소 멈님바 메바당 소 머스르와당 소 겐담 메바당 소 숭와 메바당 소 슝와 메바당 소 요와 메퍼 겨로 침창도 만겨와당 침 능의 용어를 많이 받당 치 로바메 받당 치 슈르 마겨와당 치 요와메 받당 치 나바메 받당 치 머득바메 버는 겨로 나 레벨포르 만겨와당 나 용보르 만겨와당 어동 랑보르 만겨와당 어동 용보르 만겨와당 어동 나보르 만겨와당 어동 스타나 머득바르 만겨로 마판 반더스타 위치에당 소당 치당 잡장 신들럭버 인겨와당 나 체와당 잔기가 입럭바당 문마 럭바당 짜라 이 체와당 这也切啊的会是的做吧，托不人牛肉，对象是不要蛋白的，技术蛋白样，托不人牛肉多，上级中等的那么的，要么你等差不人牛肉多，麻烦吧，甚至这个呢主要是讲，所以对这么艰难，跟个得当些的年当，得当些的落根，得当些的顿当，得当些的热等切不大节目的，对你中等的技术这般的，这个Garze都，今年家接俺去，把更多这个知道这个年的。투니 셈다 지스 예랑베 소놈 제님 중화 대년지 가르테 점신 머지 존네 나스떡도 셈심 시와 척주라 강 따르 강을 나이 페시 테르남지 테근 용양 야체 참바르시 고 작그르 니마 금종때 테더 갈라 니네 템통네 제마 셈신 윤모 Dada gana chujinda rabdo tambra sha teiter nama shi jurma myandavi saryang rabdo shada chapa tamchad gowar murgyan dra chapa kanlam nirdo yoyong shu chapa kanlam nirdo yoyong shu jimba jibi medir nesana semchin teta ganji chutu ne zagba zachang mali linzam bara dirchik dana 잡좀 톰제를 경 강직 제때 측직 측지도 직 도상 지스 예랑 손음 지니 바데 입손음 대외 체마르데 손음 봉보 손음 총도 하면 처럼보 건급 제때 측지도 직 도베 데르데 입손음 망제르데 데덕 타이 차장 요드만 문좀 도바데도 무주고 강들 셈정 찍라가 메바나 그러시아 척주 더머리 염돈데 양의 신들 니버가 손때 추윤지는 쪼버시 셈정 데덕기는 쪼시나 돈데 있는 예쯤 냠시바 데이데임 제베 데이레김 제베 냠버지 나면 데라 카이 나메버 데이시 양나 버마 지양 데이시 양나 버 만저 제때이 소놈 종을 만지르 바 ngumbo serbo mamtan ajerman jeram chimr digbra yang no yongman jer tegdong yogam shkamjang rangwa meda namya nalip na nalip tan yongman jer sodong chedong devjang kirnkur dang dei snadang charwi yipjang lag marnam jina tana digbran jer dei khar German ger operation的大的之前把第看的这样中人ger花我前呢这个看的送多的年比实样的送的送的的呢一怎地球年呢大不三金这个年不的第一里呢新的个啦当单把的也大一项当中浪琴相当通不人的呢是人不去原把人上吃新的部分就讲地图呢得的대덕 마이 딱장 그르 추년의 시르는 송제르 디 제버 기와 자르 제르와 예나 대시르 코르티나나 테르네스 카르불레는 시바 대덕 그 창비 단당 예르부 단남당 야신 단 장나 테톱 제르 담비 주바마 카르볼레 지스 이런 소는 담비 레그 지샤르테 주든 바고
Now we will begin teaching the Lotus Sutra. We have already completed more than half of the Lotus Sutra. We hope to finish it this year. Let me see how much is left. Wow, this is quite good. Only a little bit remains now. Very good, not much left. After we finish teaching the Lotus Sutra, I do not know whether this year or next year we will preliminarily begin. If all conditions are favorable and there are no obstacles, we will begin teaching the Vimalakarti Sutra. This is the preliminary plan. We shall see how things going on. Today we will continue teaching the volume 6 of the Lotus Sutra, the chapter on the merits of joyful acceptance. The chapter on the merits of joyful acceptance is also very important. In the past, throughout history, for example, there are many accounts in the record of responses to the Lotus Sutra. In the records of the Lotus Sutra, there are many stories as well. In the record of responses to the Lotus Sutra, there is one story. There was a monk who had been ordained since childhood. He recited the Lotus Sutra regularly. Later, he had thoroughly mastered it within 3 months. He completely familiar with its contents. It says he recited 7 volumes every day. Reciting 7 volumes, does that mean 7 times? I'm not sure. Perhaps it is like that. Later, when he was 20 years old, he went to the capital city to prepare for ordination. That evening, Emperor Suzong, the 7th emperor of the Tang dynasty, had a dream that night, which is about a monk was reciting the Lotus Sutra. When the Lotus Sutra reached the chapter on the merits of joyful acceptance, light emanated from his mouth. The emperor developed tremendous faith. The next morning he issued a decree summoning monks. More than 200 monks were summoned at that time. Then the emperor came to look, but he did not find the person he had seen in his dream the night before. At that moment, this monk had just entered the city. When he entered the city, the gate guard asked him where he was from. He said, I am from Lotus Flower Temple. The place he came from was called Lotus Flower Temple. I recite the Lotus Sutra regularly. He knew the emperor had recently issued a decree. The emperor had also posted this on his Weibo, posted on Twitter. Foreign countries also often use Twitter. At that time, he was quite happy. They brought him into the palace. When he arrived, the emperor confirmed that this was indeed the person he had seen in his dream. He said, "It was you I dreamed of last night." Then the emperor joyfully had him sit on a magnificent Dharma throne to teach the Lotus Sutra. When he read the Lotus Sutra, when it reached the chapter on joyful acceptance, light truly emanated from his mouth. Various auspicious signs appeared. The emperor and his retinue developed tremendous faith. Later, the emperor arranged for him to stay at a monastery called Khenpo Temple. The emperor had him stay at Khenpo Temple. At that time, it seems that ordination also required approval from the emperor, which was very difficult. He immediately authorized him to obtain ordination certificates and issued the approval. Later, he was given the title Great Light Chan Master by the emperor. Later, when this person returned to another monastery, there was someone who had no faith. Later, he saw this monk and various auspicious signs appeared when he was reciting sutras. Although he does not have faith in the Dharma, but he became very interested in and faithful to this Dharma teacher. This is a story from the record of responses to the Lotus Sutra. It is also quite wonderful. There is another story in the records of the Lotus Sutra. There was a person who was extremely evil, committing all kinds of wrongdoing. Finally, he died and went to King Yama. The underworld gods below tallied his good and evil deeds. His evil deeds were extremely numerous. It was like 3 cartloads, extremely many. King Yama asked them to look more carefully. Later, he asked if there was any virtuous Dharma at all. Later, those underworld gods below said there was no other virtuous Dharma. It was just that in a certain place he had briefly heard a little bit of the Lotus Sutra. From a certain Dharma teacher, he heard a little bit. For a short time, he had heard the Lotus Sutra. He heard it temporarily. Apart from this, there was no virtuous Dharma at all. At that time, King Yama said, "Although your evil is great, it cannot compare to one good deed. Therefore, your roots of virtue completely destroy by what you previously created. Because this person was extremely evil, committing evil deeds his entire life. That record says he committed all kinds of evil deeds. He was an extremely bad person." But later, just because he heard a little bit of the Lotus Sutra, what did he begin to obtain? At that time, King Yama also had him return to the human world. In the end, this person truly came to have deep faith in the law of cause and effect. He recited the Lotus Sutra many times. There is such a well-known account. Just now, I spoke about this from 2 aspects. One aspect is that reciting the Lotus Sutra can help guide and liberate sentient beings, whether it is an emperor or a leader before other people, one has a kind of power. When one has power, it is easy to subduing and taming others. If a person wants to tame other sentient beings, they should have a kind of blessing power. This is very important. If your own body, speech, and mind do not have the blessings from the guru or the three jewels, although you might be good at speaking and quite good looking and very diligent in everything, your work of guiding sentient beings will not necessarily be very extensive. For example, with the Lotus Sutra, if you pray to the Dharma protectors and pray to your root guru regularly, when such conditions are fully in place, this person may appear quite ordinary, but their capability is by no means ordinary. There may be something special there. Therefore, we should also understand this from these two aspects. Buddhism often teaches that apart from what our eyes can see, there is also an invisible power. This invisible power can be obtained by many people through their own efforts. Now today we will continue with chapter 18, the chapter on the merits of joyful acceptance. Regarding this chapter on the merits of joyful acceptance, if we rejoice in others listening to the Lotus Sutra, or rejoice in others studying the Lotus Sutra, or teaching the Lotus Sutra, the merit is extremely great. Of course, each person must have their own sincere faith. Having unwavering faith in the Buddha's Vajra words is very important. Otherwise, some principles we hear may seem quite inconceivable, especially some of our wisdom is rather narrow and limited. Basically, apart from the sphere of our own conceptual thoughts, it is difficult to believe in great principles and inconceivable realms. Therefore, we should take the Buddha's words as Vajra words and combine our own sincere faith with our own wisdom to accept this Dharma. What follows is the teaching. At that time, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Maitreya made a request to the Buddha. O Bhagavat, if in this world there are sons and daughters of a virtuous family who hear this Lotus Sutra, not only do they hear it, but they also rejoice. They hear it, and after hearing it, they are joyful. Then they rejoice in others participating in hearing and practicing the Dharma. In that case, how much merit and virtue would they obtain? He asked the Buddha such questions. And he first spoke in prose and then spoke in verse. After the Bhagavat's parinirvana, if there is anyone who hears this sutra, O Buddha, you will certainly leave this world. After your parinirvana, if some people hear this sutra, not only hear it, but are also able to rejoice, what merit will they obtain? At that time, in the Buddha's presence, for some gurus, if you were to ask them, what will happen after you pass away, they would immediately become upset. The Buddha was not like this. Otherwise, among some Dharma teachers, when they hear people say, after you die, I will do this or that, when asked in this way, some feel displeased. But the Buddha certainly would not be like this. Actually, in Buddhism, generally speaking, the matters such as how to handle property after death, Buddhist gurus and disciples do not pay much attention to or care about this matter. But regarding the preservation and transmission of the Dharma teachings, everyone takes it very seriously, including when our guru, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, was alive. He often spoke in class. Once I leave this world, how should you protect Larung and the Institute? If there are people who are grateful and repay kindness, they will continue to stay here and remember some of the teachings of this old father, and so on. He often said such things. Therefore, generally in Buddhism and worldly people, in some respects, they are quite different. At this time, the Buddha addressed Bodhisattva Mahasattva Maitreya. He said, O Ajita, which is the meaning of Maitreya, after the Tathagata's parinirvana, if there are monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, as well as wise ones apart from the four groups of disciples, other scholars and sages, among these sages some are older and some are younger, no matter who they are. If they hear this Lotus Sutra and greatly rejoice, for example, in a certain classroom, whether they listen to the whole thing completely or listen to part of it, after listening they leave the Dharma assembly and go to other places, whether they go to some temples, to the monks' quarters of monasteries, or go to some tranquil places, or in some cities, or on some streets, in alleys, or in some villages, or go to some fields, pastoral areas, in various different settings. After hearing this Lotus Sutra, each person may gather in different places. I think many of our Dharma friends in the future will also go to various different places. Some will go to big cities, some will go to other countries, some will go to small villages, some will go to the countryside, some will go to monasteries, some will be in open spaces like the Aba grasslands, the Ruargai grasslands, the Seda grasslands, the Garze grasslands, the Jigme grasslands. On the grasslands, a person meditating like this, meditating alone on vast and boundless grasslands. This is also possible, is it not? No matter how it is, whatever one has heard of this Lotus Sutra, for one's own parents, relatives, good friends, and spiritual friends, one explains it to them according to one's ability. According to one's own capacity, it is not necessarily required that one fully comprehends it or completely understands all the profound meanings within, that all the profound meanings are fully comprehended. According to one's ability, the Buddha says here, according to one's own situation, one explains it to them based on one's circumstances. When these people return to their own places, before their parents, relatives, and friends, they say, oh, I went to a certain place. I received the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra is very good. Would you like me to explain it to you? No offering is required. It is free to listen. But nowadays, if listening is free, many will not come. If we charge some tickets, for example, $200 or 700 RMB per class, then they are very happy to register. Generally, if we give free classes now, many people are suspicious. Surely this is not legitimate. There is no free food delivery. If we explain to them after these people hear it, they also rejoice. They are joyful and rejoice in others hearing it. How wonderful. Then they begin to pass it on to other people. In this way, it continues to be passed on. For example, I am a Tibetan and I pass it to a Han Chinese people. The Han Chinese passes it to a Mongolian. The Mongolian passes it to someone from Xinjiang. The person from Xinjiang passes it to other people. In this way, it continues to be passed on to others. Finally, each person rejoices and begins to pass it on. Actually, if all our conditions are favorable, many people can pass it on in a short time, including now, especially in the information age. Sometimes we post something. Last night I posted a few photos. I looked and saw, after I posted a few photos, within 5 minutes the views already exceeded 10,000. Now I feel it is quite frightening sometimes. Whether good information or bad information, we generally do as we please. Some rather trivial things like eating and drinking many people seem to pay attention to immediately. But now something like the Lotus Sutra, if it is truly transmitted continuously in this way, being passed on step by step until it finally reaches 50 people. I first explain it here directly, face to face, to the people present. Then these people pass it on, and eventually it reaches 50 people. Bodhisattva Maitreya said here, the propagation of the Dharma is very important. Each person should have responsibility. Do not think, oh, I am not a Dharma teacher. When Khenpos and Khenmos were evaluated, I did not receive a certificate, so now I have completely lost confidence. Without a certificate, how could I possibly teach? But sometimes obtaining a certificate is not necessarily that significant. Some people, after getting a certificate and immediately run away, their motivation is not very pure, then that certificate will not really serve much purpose later on. But among those who have not obtained a certificate, there are some whose hearts are very sincere, who genuinely have deep faith in the Dharma, and they can still bring great benefit to sentient beings. Therefore, whoever truly has the ability to understand and penetrate the Dharma, others should also learn to respect such a person. In this regard, Tibetan Buddhism is indeed very good. No matter what they are like, as long as they possess the ability to teach and explain the Dharma and maintain pure precepts at such times, everyone is very respectful. Actually, this is very important. The great Parinirvana Sutra says, those who know the Dharma, whether old or young, should be offered to, respected, and venerated with prostrations. If some people who understand the profound meaning of the Dharma, whether they are old or young, whether they are good-looking or not, whatever their status in this world, out of respect and reverence for the Dharma, we should make offerings, show respect, and prostrate. This is taught in the great Parinirvana Sutra. It is very important. Therefore, in the process of transmitting the Dharma, whether you are a layperson or a monastic, I have quoted many times before, if the mind is very pure, lay people can also play a very great role. In the Republican era, many cities in Han region, there were some famous lay people. It seems now, among lay people, those who are very famous, very proficient in the Dharma, and who have great influence in the world, such people are quite rare. Actually, householders and monastics. In terms of certain precepts and some aspects, monastics have their special scope and authority. Generally speaking, much of Buddhism can be learned by all. Therefore, what we just mentioned about teaching and explaining the Dharma, explaining according to one's ability, this point is very important. Some of us think I have not attained realization, or I still have afflictions in my mind stream. How could I teach and explain the Dharma to others? Actually, it is not like this. I see the Satyasiddhi Shastra also says, if some people can only teach the Dharma to others, this is called benefiting others. Why is this? Because that person, although they do not practice according to the Dharma, but in this person's mind stream has not acted in accordance with what the Dharma teaches, although they have not done so, because they teach the Dharma to others, they also benefit themselves. Because they teach the Dharma to others, this actually does not harm them at all. Instead, they also benefit themselves. If one explains the Dharma to others with a genuinely kind and well-intentioned heart, it is beneficial for others as well. So what we are saying here, after receiving the Dharma, returning to one's hometown, whether to one's parents, relatives, good friends, or spiritual friends, one teaches the Dharma to them according to one's ability. Everyone must definitely remember this phrase, you can sit down. It is all right. Is your knee hurting? If it hurts, you can also sit outside. Too fat, right? So what we just spoke about, if one teaches the Dharma to others, it is called benefiting others. We say benefiting oneself and others, benefiting oneself and others. To using the Dharma to benefit oneself and others is most important, because truly eliminating the root of ignorance and afflictions, the seeds of ignorance and afflictions from others' mind streams. In the middle, it seems I spoke about other things. What I mean is, after hearing the Lotus Sutra just now, they return to their hometowns, then pass it on, continuing to pass it on until the 50th person. Now, regarding the 50th person, we can understand from the name itself. Other commentaries on the Lotus Sutra also explain when it is passed to 50 people, the last one, their merit is not very great. Why is this? Because the last person did not pass it on to other people. The previous 49 people all passed it on to the 50th person. So these previous people both heard the Dharma before them, rejoiced, and also passed it on to others. Therefore, they have double merit. Then when it reaches the 50th person, they are joyful and having received it from others, but they have not yet passed it on to others. So from the perspective of merit, when it reaches the last 50th person, their merit is comparatively weaker, because they only have one directional merit, not two directional merit. However, their merit is also very great. So this is called the Buddha praised 50th joyful acceptance. In Buddhist scriptures, there is specifically a term called the Buddha praised 50th joyful acceptance. This 50th joyful acceptance is a story of very great merit. At that time, the Buddha said, O Bodhisattva Maitreya, the merit of the 50th son or daughter of a virtuous family who rejoices, I will now tell you, you should listen carefully, because among the 50 people, the merit of the 50th person is comparatively weaker, but their merit is also especially great. I want to tell you. So this is something we find difficult to imagine, but we should still try to understand it, even if it is difficult to imagine. If there are hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of incalculable worlds, so many worlds. Sentient beings in the six realms include those of the four modes of birth. What are the four modes of birth? They are egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, and spontaneously born. In the desire realm, all four types of birth exist. In the form realm, beings are generally born spontaneously. As for the formless realm, according to the Abhidharmakosha, what kind of birth is it? Does the formless realm even have birth? Spontaneous birth, right? Mental spontaneous birth. Hey, you experts on the Abhidharmakosha, Abhidharmakosha, you who study the true aspects of the Abhidharmakosha and have written so many papers, what kind of birth does the formless realm have? Spontaneous birth, right? Who said that? A lay practitioner, spontaneous birth. What kind of spontaneous birth is that? They do not even have physical bodies, so how can there be birth? Still, some are said to be spontaneously born. As for the hell realms, all beings there are spontaneously born, arising through transformation. Among hungry ghosts, there are all kinds of birth. Among animals, there are all kinds of birth as well. Does animals have spontaneous birth? Yes. These are sentient beings of the six realms. There are also those with form, like those in the form realm. There are also those without form, without bodies. Some have perception and some do not have perception. In our formless realm, the sphere of infinite consciousness, the sphere of infinite space, and then those without any perception, and the peak of existence and so forth, neither perception nor non-perception. Then those without feet, like earthworms, those with 2 feet, like humans and birds, those with 4 feet, like many animals among the animal realm, those with many feet, like some insects, all kinds of sentient beings. In our world, there are many different kinds of beings, sentient beings with all kinds of forms and appearances, if they wish to obtain blessings and happiness. Then, according to their own wishes, there are those who specifically provide for all sentient beings, those of the 4 modes of birth and the 6 realms, giving each sentient being exactly what they wish to receive. For example, an earthworm likes soil. Every day it feeds on dark soil. But earthworms have a kind of frugality. They feel reluctant to eat too much. Otherwise, the whole earth would be used up. They often have thoughts like this. Earthworms are very economical. Giving each sentient being what it needs, when given one by one, is already equivalent to filling all of Jambudvapa. Of course, if we take humans and devas as the main example, it would be gold, silver, and precious treasures. As for animals and other kinds of sentient beings, the 7 treasures may not necessarily be what matters most, but among them, probably mainly for humans, mainly for the humans of Jambudvapa, gold, silver, lapis lazuli, mother of pearl, agate, coral, amber, and various precious treasures, as well as elephants, horses, elephant carts, horse carts, and palaces and towers made of the 7 treasures, and so forth. This is what a great donor can provide. After all these gifts have been fulfilled, this great donor himself, it seems in the Tibetan version it says these sentient beings, but these sentient beings are probably not correct. He has already spent 80 years of time. The great donor he gave to all beings encompassed by the 4 modes of birth and the 6 realms. This is a hypothetical sentence. To all these sentient beings, he has already spent 80 years giving them whatever they wished. At this time, after 80 years had passed, he thought this way. Now I have given these sentient beings not only various kinds of entertainment and resources, but all the wealth they needed. But these sentient beings have also become old. According to the human lifespan, after 80 years, these sentient beings have also become old. 80 years have passed. Probably the following mainly refers to humans. Then these sentient beings have white hair and wrinkled faces. Death is not very far away. Death is not far away. Shambhala is before the eyes. There is a song that says this. Then he said, death is not very far away. So now, previously I provided all resources and enjoyments. In the beginning it encompassed the 4 modes of birth, but later it mainly fulfilled humans. These people, I should guide them with the Dharma. Then he issued a decree to summoning all the sentient beings to whom he had given. Then he proclaimed the Dharma, revealing, teaching, benefiting, and gladdening. We also explained this earlier. Now at this time, through the guidance of the Dharma, many of them attained it successively, first attaining the fruit of stream winner and the path of once returner, then the path of non-returner, and then attained the arhatship. After attaining arhatship, all the afflictions with corruption were completely gone. They entered an especially profound and free state of meditation, and they possessed all merits, such as the 8 liberations. So in this way, the Buddha said to Bodhisattva Maitreya, "What do you think? Is the merit obtained by this donor great or not? Just look. Over the course of 80 years, this single person gave to all sentient beings, mainly human beings, first using all kinds of worldly wealth to satisfy their needs, bringing them happiness. In the end, all these sentient beings, through the Dharma, were enabled to attain arhatship. from the fruition of stream entry onward. It seems that what is described later is that all of them attained arhatship. Of course, generally speaking, this is impossible. We can say this is a hypothetical sentence. So in this way, would you say it is much or not? At that time, he said it like this. Bodhisattva Maitreya addressed the Buddha. O Bhagavat, this person's merit is extremely great, immeasurable, and limitless. If this donor merely gave all the resources for entertainment to sentient beings, the merit would be inconceivable, immeasurable, and limitless. Generally, when we do some charity work, doing charity for 2 or 3 years, or organizing some activity, today I perform great merit. Then if we participate in a life release, today I participated in a life release activity. I want to take a selfie together with the fish. Click. Just showing off. Whether it is life release or anything else, many people do things in this way now. But actually, is this merit great or not? If one gives continuously without interruption for 80 years, the merit would be inconceivable. How much more so when so many sentient beings attain arhatship, enabling all of them to completely sever their grasping at a personal self, and to attain arhatship, the merit would be even more inconceivable, needless to say. Then the Buddha said to Maitreya, I will tell you clearly now, this person with all these resources for happiness, including to the sentient beings of the 6 realms in 400 myriads of kotis of incalculable worlds just mentioned, these sentient beings of the 6 realms, enabling them to attain arhatship, this merit is completely incomparable to the 50th person. The 50th person merely heard one verse of the Lotus Sutra and rejoiced in it. This merit cannot be compared even by 100th, 1,000th, 100,000th. Even if we use metaphors or reasoning and inference by various means, there is no way to express it. Indeed, the merit of listening to the Lotus Sutra is very great. If you do not believe it very much, then there is nothing we can do. However, some have roots of virtue from past lives. Those with roots of virtue in the Mahayana Dharma from past lives will not easily give rise to doubts. Because in past lives, if they stayed among others, such as among hungry ghosts or in heretical paths, in groups with wrong knowledge and wrong views, in this life they will easily give rise to wrong views. If you do not have wrong views, if you truly accept it with right faith, and when conditions are complete, you can tell others, then regardless of whether others understand or not, as long as there is a mind of joy and rejoicing, and then they pass it on to others, with the transmission continuing until it reaches 50 people, the merit of the 50th person among all 50 is the smallest. Yet what that person obtains, when compared with the merit of all sentient beings in an entire great trichiliocosm attaining arhatship, is simply beyond comparison. So truly, this is extremely inconceivable. Therefore, whenever we teach the Lotus Sutra, I always think to myself, if His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok had taught it at that time, it would probably have been even more deeply moving. Because in the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok taught the biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni, including the Sutra of 100 Karmas and the Wise and Foolish Sutra, as well as the 8 great Bodhisattvas. When teaching these relatively simple stories, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, as a great Bodhisattva, naturally embodied a way of conduct that was somewhat different from that of us ordinary beings. And when he taught many of the real states at that time, whenever encountering some story scenes, sometimes there were some recollections, sometimes there were truly many different feelings. For those of us listening to the teachings, for a long time that feeling was not easy to disperse. For a very long time the impact was enormous. And the blessing power of a spiritual friend, it seems like if I just flip through books myself, I can understand the meaning of the story roughly, but that power compared to a truly spiritual friend with blessing power teaching the Dharma, that kind of power is completely different. If I read it myself, I might be moved for a while, then it immediately disappears. But if the Guru teaches this Dharma, it seems that in one's own life, even for many lifetimes, the impact is quite profound. So in this respect, there is still a great difference. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok did not teach it at that time, but he also taught about this extremely great merit. The Buddha told Ajita, Bodhisattva Maitreya, even the 50th person, through successive transmission, who finally hears the Lotus Sutra and rejoices in it, accrues merit that is immeasurable, boundless, and incalculable. Such merit is beyond any comparison. How much more so, then, for the very first person among the 50, the very first one, the second, the third, and those before them, for among them, especially the very first, there is the opportunity to hear the Dharma directly from the greatest spiritual friend. Moreover, their lineage of transmission is increasingly close. Thus, when such people hear the teaching and rejoice in it, the merit they gain is even more immeasurable and boundless. There is simply no way to calculate it. It is certainly immeasurable, limitless, and incalculable. Earlier, we had a phrase called incomparable. There is no way to compare. Therefore, in our Buddhist sutras and treatises, there are often some praises. For example, Great Master Hanshan, in some of his teachings, also spoke about some of the Mahayana Dharma. For instance, in Venerable Hanshan's Dream Wanderings collection, it says that all the merits of Mahayana Buddhism are gathered in something equivalent to the King of Aspiration prayers. It says here, those who see, hear, gaze upon, or pay homage, who praise and extol, with even one thought of rejoicing, instantly plant the seed of the highest path. Even with one thought of rejoicing, there is the seed of the supreme path and supreme merit. Therefore, in Buddhism, there are some particular things of which we may not know their profound meaning. For example, how much merit do we have from prostrating? How much merit from praising? This includes when we recite the King of Aspiration prayers, such as making offerings of flowers or water. Many people feel that these forms look very simple, but in fact they plant extraordinarily great merit. You see, when we listen to the teachings here, generally speaking, listening to the Lotus Sutra versus reading the Lotus Sutra, one might think there's no difference. Listening or not seems the same. Reading it on one's own also feels the same, right? But in reality, there is indeed a difference. So within this, there are very subtle conditions and causes which many people do not clearly understand, especially those without faith, those who have not taken refuge, or those who have not specifically studied this area. It is very difficult for them to understand these causes and conditions of spiritual merit. Therefore, some genuine principles of the Dharma can only be uniquely obtained through the teachings of the Guru. In Je Tsongkhapa's Praise of Dependent Origination, there is a passage that conveys this meaning, probably in the later part, which I translated at the time. The meaning is like this. He says, we have encountered the peerless teaching of the Buddha. This is actually the kindness of the spiritual friend. Therefore, through this virtue, may all sentient beings be guided by a spiritual friend. What does this mean? This meaning is still very important. We encountered the Dharma and understood the Dharma. It should be the kindness of the Guru. Therefore, the virtue I have created, I hope all sentient beings will have a spiritual friend to guide them. With a spiritual friend's guidance, there is a way. If there is no spiritual friend's guidance, just encountering the Dharma, they will not understand either. Therefore, the concluding verses of the Praise of Dependent Origination, when I first came to the Larung, I felt this verse was very important. At that time, I was very grateful to Khenpo Depa because I encountered His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. After coming to the Larungar, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok taught the Buddha's path every day. I once thought that if I were living in the vast world out there, including myself, if at that time we were teachers, I thought that if my classmates and I were all teachers, I probably wouldn't run into these kinds of situations. At that time, my faith was actually quite strong. I often recited the scriptural quotation I just mentioned. All of you can take a look yourselves. As for the praise of dependent origination, we've already given it to everyone. You've used it before, right? It is probably in the later part. It seems we also have it in some recitation collections. Indeed, we should often make such aspirations, hoping that many sentient beings, including the merit of our listening to the Dharma, hearing the Dharma, and teaching the Dharma today, may many sentient beings who have not been guided by a spiritual friend, who are still drifting in the ocean of samsara, they are especially pitiful. May they be guided by a true spiritual friend. This is also also an aspiration. Why do I say this? I do not know why I spoke about this. I just spoke about this. I forgot. Sometimes I get lost. I apologize. Furthermore, O Ajita, right? Usually we do not call him Ajita instead of Bodhisattva Maitreya, so this name seems very unfamiliar. From now on, we often say Ajita. If someone goes to a monastery or a temple to hear this Lotus Sutra, then whether they stand or sit there for a brief moment, a short time, sometimes we have some tourists here who stand there for a bit or sit for a while. Their feet hurt terribly. They really cannot sit still, so they stretch their legs this way and that way, sitting this way for a while, that way for a while. It is very painful. Just now there were several people. They should be newcomers, tourists. These tourists are like this. All those who sit there for a while, stand for a while, or listen a bit, through the merit of this condition, may they in the future, perhaps not in this life, in the future, be reborn in a place with wealth. They will obtain very fine carts, though now there are probably no horse carts or elephant carts. In the future, they will buy luxury cars like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Rolls-Royce. Now there are artificial intelligence cars, which are also very convenient, just on your phone, and private helicopters. Now many wealthy people have their own luxury yachts and so on. Precious palanquins. Palanquins were in the past carried by several people for the emperor. In many of our movies now, it is also like this, and some heavenly palaces, especially fine ones. It is said that Bill Gates in the 1990s enjoyed fully artificial intelligence, various kinds of facilities. If someone goes to a place where the Lotus Sutra is being taught, some people come, for example, when they arrive at the door. They encourage others to sit and listen to the teaching, saying, "Today, the Lotus Sutra is being taught here. Would you like to listen to one class?" Then they invite them in to sit in someone else's seat or share half of their own seat with another person. Sharing one's own seat, not hogging someone else's space, saying, "Do not sit here. What are you doing?" Some of us are quite attached to seats. It is not like this. We should share this seat. For example, when an unfamiliar person, a newcomer, arrives, originally one's own seat here, like this, sit, sit, sit. In this way, through such merit, in the future you may attain the positions of Chakra, Brahma, or a wheel-turning king. If we set aside Chakra and Brahma, then it could be a national president, a head of state, or an official such as a bureau chief or section chief, including positions like station managers and similar roles. In short, one attains some kind of leadership position. If one grabs someone else's seat when listening to the Lotus Sutra, one will also easily be removed from office. Truly, these merits are inconceivable. Why do some people want to advance in career and get rich, but it never happens? For some people, the conditions are very skillful. Their own abilities are all ordinary. But truly, sometimes I think to myself, when all these high-ranking officials and leaders from around the world gather together, I often think in my heart that these people must surely, in their past lives, for example, like King Aniruddha in the past, who held the position of a wheel-turning king for many lifetimes, this too was due to the merit of having made offerings before a Buddha in the past. So causes and conditions are truly inconceivable. If in this very life we seize others' positions or harm others, then in our future life and livelihood we will encounter all kinds of difficulties. Some people's lives are very uneven. We could say they are full of frustration. Whatever they try to do, they run into obstacles everywhere. It is extremely troublesome. For others, things seem especially smooth. No matter what it is, as soon as they think of it, some of them do not even make much effort, yet things naturally come to them. This too is the working of such causes and conditions. Because we sentient beings truly do not deeply understand matters of karma and cause and effect, therefore the merit of encouraging others to practice virtue is very great. The Irreversible Dharma Wheel Sutra also says, the wise in the Dharma themselves believing and encouraging others to believe, teaching and passing on in this way, increase all merits. Passing it on in this way, in the end, many merits increase. Therefore, we should still encourage others to enjoy the teachings we understand. This is very important. The merit of encouraging others is still very great. This is one section of meaning. There is another section of meaning. The Buddha told Ajita, if someone says says to another person, here, the Lotus Sutra is being taught. The teaching is called the Lotus Sutra. Let us listen together. Just now, when someone arrived, we shared a seat with them. Here, perhaps they have not yet arrived. At the doorway or at another time, let us go together to listen to the Lotus Sutra. At that moment, this person has already accepted it, immediately accepting the teaching. Then together they go to the place where the teaching is given. When listening, even for a single moment, for just a short time, only a few minutes, 10 minutes or so. So why, when I first began the other day, regarding some of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok's past teachings, he would usually teach a single story or teach over several sessions. But this time, with the Lotus Sutra, the merit is extraordinarily great. Even if you listen to just one session, that is already sufficient. If listening to even one session is truly not possible, if halfway through you suddenly have diarrhea or if some urgent matter arises, then leaving is also permitted. Of course, if we do not allow it, there is also nothing we can do. Now this person's merit, you see, listening to the teaching for a short time, this merit in the next life, later they will be able to live together with bodhisattvas who have attained dharani. Why is it that now some people are always together with many spiritual friends? Always from childhood, I also said before, I seem to have great merit. When I was in primary school, when I was in middle school, in all cases, many spiritual friends would appear there in different situations, including when I went to herd yaks. There was also a very good monastic. So throughout my life, I do not know if they have dharan. As for dharan, there is none forgetting dharan, Dharma dharan, they should have them. Some people may indeed have had some merit from past lives. Perhaps they brought some people to the Lotus Dharma Hall to listen to teachings. In this way, along the path, there are spiritual friends and very good people by their side. It has always been like this. And their wisdom is also very sharp. For hundreds of thousands of myriads of lives, they will not become mute. They also do not have bad breath from their mouths. Otherwise, for some people, no matter how much they brush their teeth, it still does not help. When you sit next to them, you can immediately notice a very obvious smell, and their tongues do not have any illness. There are no oral diseases. Their mouths also have no serious diseases. Their teeth are not yellow, not black, not widely spaced, not missing, not falling out, and not irregular. Their lips are also not drooping, nor are they pursed or contracted. They are not the kind where the upper and lower lips are very uneven. They are also not rough. Sometimes some people's lips are especially extremely rough. They do not look very attractive. People from different countries also have differences, including some black people. We do not have black people here, right? Otherwise they would not be happy. But they themselves say that if the lips are a bit thicker, for them, they're beautiful women and handsome men. Still have their own different standards. We cannot use our own standards from the southern continent or our Asian perspective to judge them. Every place has its own differences, including the fact that their lips also do not have other diseases. Some people's lips are constantly cracked and damaged. Some lay practitioners, when they come to the Tibetan region and experience altitude sickness, their lips become somewhat like that, but probably after they return it gets better, because in the past they encouraged others to listen to the Lotus Sutra, because they use their mouths to say, let us go listen together. Through this condition, their lips, teeth, and tongue are all very good. So their lips are not missing, nor are they cleft. Their mouths are also not crooked or slanted. Some people's mouths are always crooked. This is not the case here. Then not thick, not large. Earlier it was not rough. Here it is not thick, not large. Some people's lips are quite special. This rough, how should we explain rough? Lips that are rough, how do we describe that? Lips that are rough, how do you say it? Lips that are rough, not very smooth, right? Now many people, if their lips are rough, can just apply a bit of lipstick. Now many men also do this, not rough, not dry. Then lips are not thick and mouths are not very large. It seems I've heard many celebrities also, especially like big mouths very much. Also not dark, mouths not dark. In any case, no ugly features. Then noses are not flat, not collapsed, noses not crooked. In the past, we had a monastic whose nose was always crooked. crooked like this. Faces not dark, also not narrow and long, then not sunken and crooked, not that kind of, how to say, what we call a shoehorn face. Back when I was in middle school, I studied from a leader every day without any unpleasant features, lips, tongue, teeth, all extremely dignified, noses lofty and high, not crooked, very straight. Faces round, full and dignified, eyebrows high and long, foreheads broad and even, all human features complete. In short, the whole face of the person, because they encourage listening to the Lotus Sutra teachings. Even in the future, some people would still encourage others, partly to look good themselves. If someone looks good in this life, it really is somewhat difficult. But if being good looking in the next life still encourage one person, if you see someone on the road, come, let us go listen to the teaching together. You all hurry and encourage, otherwise the Lotus Sutra will be finished soon. Probably in the future at the doorway, when you see one person, many people will fight over them. This kind of dignified appearance, life after life, and moreover seeing the Buddha and hearing the Dharma, being able to see Buddhas and hear the Dharma and accepting it with faith for instruction, and life after life. Because in past lives we formed a virtuous connection with the Lotus Sutra. Life after life we see Buddhas and hear the Dharma, and we will not easily give rise to wrong views. This is very important. Generating faith life after life. So the merit of hearing the Dharma is also very great. In the past I used a quotation from the Sutra of the correct mindfulness of the true Dharma. It seems at that time when I was teaching the praise of dependent origination or something. The merit of hearing the Dharma among all merits is the most supreme and highest. The merit of hearing the Dharma among all merits is the most supreme and highest. So if we here also encourage others to hear the Dharma, this merit is also the highest and most supreme. Then the Buddha told Ajita, you see, the merit of encouraging just one person to hear the Dharma is already so great. Imagine how much greater it is if many people with full sincerity listen to this Dharma, the Lotus Sutra, then recite it and also teach it to others in their own way and practice it properly according to the teachings, then the merit becomes truly beyond imagination. It seems the collection of important sutras says, there was a Shramana who recited Mahayana teachings day and night. At that time there was a little dog in his dormitory. That dog would hear him every single day. Later, after it passed away, it was reborn as a girl in the city of Shravast. When she grew up, because of the conditions from her past life, she ended up listening to teachings from that same Dharma teacher again. So originally it had been a little dog listening to the teachings. Nowadays, some monastics also hold little dogs every day. Maybe they also hope to turn the Dharma wheel for them. Yes, some people, when we eat something, they themselves eat a bit. Later she attained arhatship. There is also such merit. Truly, hearing the Dharma has great merit. Below, the Bhagavat elaborates on this meaning again. Did I explain too extensively today? It's been a long time since I last taught this, so once I start talking about rejoicing in others' merit, it gets a bit excited. It is still a lot for the next part. Should I go ahead and teach it or not? All right, let's teach. Anyway, we're used to going over an hour now. Next, we'll go through the verses. If someone hears this Lotus Sutra in a Dharma assembly, listens to it, rejoices at even a single verse, and also teaches it to others, then passing it on in this way until it reaches the 50th person, in the end, receives merit that is truly beyond imagination. There's nothing new here. It's basically the same content presented in verse form as before. Today, the Buddha says, I will now tell you the merit of the 50th person. For example, if there is a great donor who provides for countless sentient beings continuously like this for 80 years, fulfilling their wishes as they please, finally seeing these sentient beings grow old, and he himself also aging, seeing many people with white hair and wrinkled faces, their teeth already fallen out, and their bodies deteriorating as well. At this time, he thought, self and others probably leaving this world will not be very far away. At this time, he thought in his mind, I should inspire them with the Dharma. If I help them my whole life, it does not mean anything. Now, some entrepreneurs also have this meaning. I help them continuously with employment. In the end, I still spiritually plant some roots of virtue in them. Therefore, Finally, in the path and fruit, using skillful means, he explained the true Dharma of Nirvana. Did this old man turn the Dharma wheel himself, or did he ask others to turn the Dharma wheel? It is not very clear. In any case, he taught the content of the Dharma. I feel this verse is very good. He says, all things in the world are not stable. They are like water foam, bubbles, and mirages. Two metaphors. One is a mirage, one is water bubbles. So you all should also know this principle and very quickly give rise to a mind of renunciation toward the world. Everyone must definitely remember this verse, whether it is worldly fame, status, talent, or emotions, many, many things, although temporarily, just like we recently taught, like a moon in water and reflections in a mirror, they appear, but indeed they are not stable. Status is also not stable. Wealth is also not stable. No matter what beautiful objects you encounter, they are also not stable. Any ugly environment you encounter is also not stable. Therefore, we do not need to particularly care, grasp, or suffer. If we continue like this, we do not need to be like this all the time, since we understand that everything is unstable. As Buddhist practitioners, we should understand the worldly matters. Look, so many sentient beings. At that time, the venerable elder, this 80-year-old man, after he taught them this principle, they all attained arhatship. And we too, although reaching arhatship now might be a bit difficult, should still have some understanding of Buddhism. This point should be very clear. If we develop such a deep understanding of Buddhism, then it truly becomes meaningful. By hearing the true Dharma, one can recognize the true nature of all phenomena. Because we have heard the true Dharma, finally, what do we know? We recognize the true nature of all phenomena. The sentient beings in the three realms of samsara are confused because they do not know the truth. If we know the truth, we truly have no need to suffer. Therefore, the wise should diligently listen to the true Dharma. I'm not sure if I've used this phrase before. It's a particularly beautiful verse from the Sutra of the Correct Mindfulness of the True Dharma. Because we hear the true Dharma, we come to know the truth. And since we know the truth, the wise take great delight in listening to teachings. They won't just run off in the middle of a lesson. If someone does not want to listen to teachings according to the meaning of some sutras, they are not wise. Listening to one class, then never wanting to listen again. For such people, there is still some distance and time to awakening from samsara. Therefore, you see here, worldly phenomena are not stable. Indeed, such principles are relatively easy to understand. After these people heard it, they attained arhatship, possessing the 6 transcendent powers, the 3 sciences, and the 8 liberations. Finally, the 50th person heard one verse and rejoiced. This merit is so great, inconceivable, no way to express it using metaphors. Passing it on in this way, there is so much merit. How much more so for the very first people in this Dharma assembly, the first, the second, and so on. And those people who is hearing the Lotus Sutra and rejoicing, this merit is even more needless to say. If someone encourages another person, leading them to listen to the Lotus Sutra and telling them this Lotus Sutra is extremely difficult to encounter in thousands of hundreds of myriads of kotis of kalpas, you should listen well. This person already accepted, then went to the temple, hearing this Dharma for a brief moment. This merit can also be told to you today. So what is this merit? Life after life, there will be no afflictions in the mouth, no diseases, teeth also not gapped, not yellow, not black, lips also not thick, not missing, not pursed, without any disagreeable features. Actually, a person's mouth is very important. Mouth, nose, eyes, in any case, all are important. Tongues are also very important. If the tongue is too short, one cannot even speak clearly. Fundamentally unable to speak well. Noses are also very important. Noses high and noses long and straight, foreheads broad and even, the entire face extremely dignified. Others seeing them are also very joyful. The dignity and proper appearance of a person is actually the merit from past lives. So I think those with past life merit, who are quite dignified and good looking in this life, should make further efforts. Otherwise, being very good looking in this life, but if creating much evil karma in the next life, some people may look very attractive attractive, but they often get angry easily, showing it in all sorts of ways. According to the entering the middle way, if in this life we frequently fail to practice patience and often insult others, then in the next life we will become particularly unattractive. So if someone is good looking in this life but is careless, they will also be very unattractive in their next life. If someone is not very attractive in this life but practices well, then in the next life they might truly become especially attractive. No bad breath, and their mouths often carry a subtle fragrance of lotus constantly emanating from them. This is just one aspect of it. There are also those who bring them to the monastery or to the temple to listen to the Lotus Sutra. Even hearing the Lotus Sutra for just a brief moment and rejoicing, their merit can also be recorded here. After being reborn among humans and devas, they will obtain wonderful elephants and horse carts, precious palanquins, as well as heavenly palaces, extremely fine palaces and warm residences. Now some people have great merit, having various kinds of extremely fine things, including their own dwellings. These are all obtained effortlessly. Some do not have enough merit in this life. Among us practitioners also constantly moving, living in a cow dung shed for a few days, or living in someone else's places. This is also related to one's own past lives. For some people, it is like a palace. Bedrooms are also like palaces. But for some people, when the palace is torn down, it is also very sad. Then cow dung huts without many buildings, huts like that, when they are torn down, there is no suffering. At a place where the Dharma is taught, encouraging people to listen to the sutras, through this connection, they attain the positions of Brahma, Shakra, and a universal monarch. How much more so for those who wholeheartedly encourage many people to listen to all the sutras and treatises completely. That merit is even more beyond words. So this kind of practice has merit that is inconceivable and immeasurable. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Bandara